Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dakota's Political Circle. And today I'm talking about the governor's races for 2026. So, just like how I do the Senate ones every 2 months for 2026, I'm doing the governor's ones now. So, I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about the governor's races now. The first video I made, I didn't really know too much about certain governor races, but I'm getting a little bit better with it, at least with knowledge and stuff like that. But yeah, this video will be me predicting the governor races for 2026. I know there's 2025 governor races, but they're not as many. That's the reason I'm talking about 2026 specifically. But I will gloss over 2025 in some videos eventually. But with 2026, I really want to talk about it because it is a lot more races when it comes to it. I don't know a lot of people care about the governor races because technically nationally they really don't matter. But if you guys think about it, it really matters in a lot of aspects. Like, for example, when it comes to making laws in certain states, like, for example, if Arizona gets a Republican governor and gets a Republican legislator, they can enact more laws when it comes to election integrity. So there's big advantages for having certain types of governors in certain types of states. And I think there's an advantage to that. But let's get into it now. And also, we'll talk about certain states in depth, even if they are like solid red states or anything like that, just because there's some intriguing things about them that I want to talk about. Sorry about that. But let's get into it. So let's start with the safe blue states because they're not as intriguing. So let's go with Oregon. We got California. Now, we'll gloss over California for a second here. I just want to talk about who might actually be running in California as the for the governor races. A lot of people are speculating that it's going to be Kamala Harris, and in my opinion, I think it probably will be Kamala Harris is going to be the one that actually ends up running. And if Kamala Harris does declare, I do think she'd actually be the one that ends up winning. Probably one of the few races you'll actually see Kamala Harris actually end up winning, like in an actual general election. Now with Republican Party, there's some interesting ones here. I do think the biggest one would be Caitlyn Jenner. Mel Gibson would be kind of cool too, but I really don't think he'd get massive support. Caitlyn Jenner probably would be the biggest one on this list that could try to persuade California to vote for Caitlyn Jenner. But I don't think in any possible way anyone on the Republican side could, unless maybe someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He could probably get a bunch of votes, but he ain't gonna do it. So, and also, I don't think he can do it anymore. I think he was term limited. But either way, I think no matter what, a Dem is going to win, no matter who it is. But I do expect it to be possibly Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris is probably going to be the one that actually wins the governorship. But we'll see what happens. But that's a safe Dem state, no matter what. Let's go with Hawaii for the Dems. Let's go with Maryland, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont. I'll leave New Hampshire off for now. These are all safe Dem. Any other ones here? I'd probably go with actually, I don't think there's any more safe Dem from what I can tell. Actually, there's New York, but I wouldn't say it's safe because Kathy Hochul sucks. So I would not keep that safe right there. So I think everything else for here is completely how it should be. So far 8 Dems that are blue. So now let's do the safe Republican states. I will go with Alaska. I think Alaska's going to be safe. Texas will be safe right now. I'm actually kind of accidentally deleted let me get it back here. Accidentally deleted the gubernatorial thing. And let me get it back. There we go. Now going to Texas, actually, I just want to look at it. So, thank goodness Matthew McConaughey decided not to run, but Greg Abbott's going to probably be the one that's going to end up winning it, which sucks because I really do not like Greg Abbott. But Greg Abbott's probably going to be the one running for governor and winning the governorship and blah, blah, blah. And so that's probably basically what's going to end up happening. So solid red for Texas. Now Florida will be solid red, but it's going to be interesting who actually goes and wins the election because obviously Ron DeSantis is term limited. Byron Donalds has declared and Matt Gaetz has expressed interest, and then there also Casey DeSantis' potential. Now, in my personal opinion, I think if Casey DeSantis actually ends up running, I think she beats Byron Donalds and Matt Gaetz. And the main reason I think that is because Casey DeSantis is a DeSantis, and DeSantis is loved in the state of Florida. Now, I know he's gotten less like less people have liked him over time, since his debates and stuff like that. But I do think if Casey actually did end up running, I think she'd have a great shot at actually winning the primary and easily winning the governorship. Now, in hypothetical polling, it shows a mixed bag here because if you see Casey DeSantis and Byron Donalds barely beats her out, but there's 33% undecided. And then if Byron Donalds, Casey DeSantis, Matt Gaetz, and Ashley Moody all go at once, Casey DeSantis prevails in that one because of the split between Matt Gaetz and Byron Donalds and Ashley Moody. And so it really depends on who's going against who. And obviously Casey DeSantis versus Matt Gaetz, it's going to be Casey DeSantis beating him by a mile. So more or less, it's kind of Casey DeSantis versus Byron Donalds. I think if it's between these two, I think Casey DeSantis barely gets over the hump. But if it's between, obviously, Casey DeSantis, Byron Donalds, Matt Gaetz, and Ashley Moody, I think no matter what, Casey DeSantis gets over top because of the big split between the three. So, but that's what that's how I personally feel about it. I honestly, in my personal opinion, I think Casey DeSantis is probably the best option out of those. I like a lot of them. Like, I think Matt Gaetz would be a great option. I think Byron Donalds would be awesome. But my personal opinion, I think Casey DeSantis would be the best shot because, it's another DeSantis in the office. Ron DeSantis was great as governor. Obviously, his wife would be great as well. That's how I see it. But going to other races here, let's go to some other solid red. You got Alabama, you got South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma. You got I think Nebraska is safe. I'll have to look just in case. Yes, Nebraska is safe. So safe for Nebraska. Wyoming, Idaho, South Dakota, Iowa. Ohio is interesting, but I would probably put it safe red no matter what. But if you look right here, Mike DeWine is term limited, so it's going to probably be Vivek running against whoever the Democrat is. Even if someone interesting decided to run, which from the Democrat standpoint, it looks like Sherrod Brown could be a potential. But even if it was Sherrod Brown, I still don't see him beating Vivek whatsoever. If you look at hypothetical polling, I don't see any. Yeah, there is a Sherrod Brown one with him winning the primary, but there's no hypothetical polling showing against Vivek and Sherrod Brown. There is one that shows Amy Acton, but I still don't think Vivek would lose. I think that 11% would go 10-9 to Vivek. So regardless, I think Vivek would win no matter what. No matter who it is, I think Vivek wins because Ohio has shifted so far right. But that's how I think that's going to happen. So I think it's going to be safe red no matter what. But if there is, Sherrod Brown, maybe you'll see a likely red. But for now, I'm going to keep it safe red. And any other states here that would be solid red? I would probably say not. I think the rest of the states will be different. Actually, there's Kansas, but if you guys know, Kansas has a Dem incumbent governor. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than safe red. Even though it is Kansas, so I'm going to not put safe red for that. Now let's go to the likely Dem states for governors. I would probably put, I almost forgot. I'm probably going to put safe for Colorado's, mainly because I don't think Jared Polis even gets it close. I think he's pretty much liked in the state, so yeah, a solid D. I really don't see that not being solid. That's the one I kind of missed there. Okay, now let's go to likely D. Oh, almost forgot Illinois. I definitely missed that one. That's guaranteed to be solid Dem. Okay, now let's go to the likely Dem states. So, let's go to the likely Dem. I would put here, I would put New York, probably. Let me just take a look just in case. So it is Kathy. I think, yeah, Kathy Hochul is the one that's going to be running. and she is really disliked in the state. But I really don't see anyone beating her um, in a in a poll. I mean, it's could well, okay, maybe I'll make it closer. I think it might be a little bit closer because she is really disliked. So I don't think it's going to be likely. I think it could be a lean margin. Any other likely D states here? Um, I would put New Mexico. It could be safe, but I'm just gonna put likely just because. Minnesota is a little bit interesting if you look at Minnesota. I think it's gonna be closer because Tim Walz is probably going to be it, but if he could also run for Senate, you never know. Um, but it's a hard one because I think there could be some people that could make it closer in some aspects, but I just really don't know. So I'm honestly just going to personally put it in the likely column because I'm not really too sure about Minnesota when it comes to the state level, but I'm going to put it there. Um, and then there's New Hampshire and Maine. Now Maine is weird with theirs because I think it could shift more to the right, but at the same time it could just stay where it's at. Uh, it's a really hard state to predict. So I'm really not too sure. But I'd probably say just to, base it off of my expectations, I'd say likely for Maine, likely D. I put likely D there. I think New Hampshire is different. I think New Hampshire is going to be different. So I really don't want to go far with that one. So let's go to the next states. So any more likely D? Pennsylvania could be because of Josh Shapiro. It could also be closer. I'm really not too sure. I know Josh Shapiro is very liked in the state of Pennsylvania, and he is very much liked. Like Josh Shapiro is loved in that state. And it is really hard for me to say if it's going to be a likely scenario or not. I'm gonna not put it in likely for now because there could be more support for Republicans, but I do still think Josh Shapiro is going to win. But it could be closer, maybe. So I'll leave that off for now. So I don't think there's any more likely D states. So I'm gonna go to the next. Now likely Republican states. So this is interesting. So I'd probably say a likely Republican state. I'm really not too sure. New Hampshire is really weird with this because if you look at New Hampshire here, Kelly Iotti is probably going to be the one that runs for re-election. She is liked in the state. That's a hard one though. I'd probably say more lean for her than likely. So I really don't want to go far with that one. I don't think Kansas would be likely. Arizona and Nevada, I don't think they would be either. Georgia, not so much. So I'd probably say no likely Republican states from what I can tell. Now some lean Dem states, there are a few. So some lean Dem, I would go with New York, mainly because I think because Kathy Hochul is hated in the state by so much, I think she wouldn't lose. I don't think she'd lose, but I do think it would be closer than a lot of people expect. So I would say that because if you look right here, Kathy Hochul is like completely hated. But when it comes to against a Republican candidate, it's a little bit iffy. So I'd say lean Dem for that. I'd also say lean Dem for Pennsylvania. Now I do think Pennsylvania could be likely Dem, but it really depends on how much support Josh Shapiro really has at the time. Doug Mastriano probably is going to be the one that actually wins the nomination. And you obviously know what happened last time against him. He got absolutely destroyed, but I do think he could make a tiny comeback maybe, but I don't think he can win because Josh Shapiro is really loved in the state of Pennsylvania. So I think that would be a lean margin. And I don't think there's any other more lean Dem from what I can tell here. I'm really not too sure from what I can tell. But I will go to the next one. So Republican lean. with when it comes to governors, I'll put New Hampshire because Kelly Ayotte is liked, so I say lean Republican there for New Hampshire, and then there's the state of Kansas. I think the state of Kansas would be lean. I think um, Laura Kelly is like a mixed bag when it comes to Kansas. I think a Republican can beat her. It could be closer, but I think it would be lean. I think more likely to be lean than anything else. So that's what I think is going to happen. Now, actually, I don't think I think she's term limited, so it'd probably be someone else. So most likely I expect the Republican candidates to win by a lean margin. That's what I think is going to happen in Kansas. Now, other states, I do think Georgia would be lean, depending on who runs. Because Brian Kemp's not going to be running for the governor of Georgia, most likely it's going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be Chris Carr, and I do think Chris Carr is liked. But then Majority Taylor Greene has expressed interest. If Majority Taylor Greene ran, she would get destroyed. I'm sorry, she is really hated in the state of Georgia when it comes to the state level. So I really don't think Majority Taylor Greene would have a shot at all. But there are showing that Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones could beat Chris Carr, but there is 73% undecided. I'm really not too sure which one I would want. Even though it sounds odd, I'd probably say the more Rhino one should get it, mainly because they'd have a better shot at actually winning it, because it's more of like a toss-up scenario here. Now, if Stacey Abrams actually ends up winning, I think no matter what, she'd lose whoever the opponent's against. But if it's someone else, it really has to be, you have to put a Rhino in at the Republican side, because that's the only way you're going to win Georgia, unless it's against Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams can't win at all in Georgia. So whoever you put up, and if it's against Stacey Abrams, you're going to be fine. But I would say lean margin for now. I'd say lean margin for Georgia. And then you got Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan here. Now, Arizona and Nevada are a little bit weird for me, but I think Nevada, even though it sounds kind of odd in some aspects, some people say it's a really big toss-up. I do think Joe Lombardo will easily win re-election. And even though it says toss-up, I think Nevada's shifting to the right a lot more than people think. And in a hypothetical scenario, he also destroys the other candidates. So I think, by all means, I think it'll be a lean margin in Nevada. And then there's Wisconsin, Michigan, and Arizona. These three states I will not put in the lean margin, so they're going to be in the tilt column. So Democrat tilt and Republican tilt for Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So I want to go with Wisconsin first because it's probably the one I least care about here. So Wisconsin has Tony Evers. It's kind of interesting because it's a literal toss-up state, and you really don't know what's going to happen. Like Eric Havidy could run, and that would be a great one to put up. Eric Havidy literally could have won the Senate, and honestly, he could probably win the governorship as well. I think it's quite literally a toss-up scenario here when it comes to Wisconsin. And if Tony Evers does run for re-election, I think he has less of a chance at winning. So, and also there's no hypothetical polling so I got to kind of make a guess here on my personal opinion. But I do think Wisconsin shifts more to the right, even though that sounds odd because when it came to the election, they shifted left. But I don't think Tony Evers is that liked in the state of Wisconsin. So I'd say it's more of like a toss-up between the right and the left. So I'm just going to put Wisconsin goes right. Then when it comes to Michigan here, this one, Michigan is a state that hates electing Republican governors. I don't know why. They love people like Gretchen Whitmer, which is absurd. But, I think whoever the Republicans put up, and if, I know Pete Buttigieg declined, most likely it could be several people that run. I'm really not sure who will actually end up winning the Democrat side. The Republican side, there's some, interesting ones like Tudor Dixon and stuff like that, but I really don't know if they can actually win. And if you look at hypothetical polling, John James is probably the one that has the highest shot at getting the nomination. It's hard. It's a toss-up. But honestly, it really depends on the state of Michigan and how they feel about Republicans at the time. But if Mike Duggan, doesn't run independently, then oh no, well actually he declared. But if Mike Duggan does have that much of a factor on the race, I think it could be a lot closer. So instead of like a lean Dem, I think a tilt D would make sense here. I don't think it could be. I don't think it could be Republican, mainly because Michigan never wants to elect a Republican governor, and if an independent does step in and takes from both sides, it could be a lot closer, and it could be a possibility that a Republican takes it. But I'm not going to count that in. And now there's only one state left, the state of Arizona. So this is an interesting state here because there has been some people having interest. Like if you look right here. Like potential Charlie Kirk. A lot of people have been talking about Charlie Kirk. Thank goodness Kari Lake is not running. If Kari Lake ran, I would be literally pissed off. But Karen Taylor Robinson has run, and Karen Taylor Robinson sucks. So hopefully she does not end up winning. But she did get an endorsement from Trump, which is very annoying. And Andy Biggs also has run as well. Honestly, I think the best shot here is if Charlie Kirk or maybe Andy Biggs wins the nomination. If either of those win the nomination, or just Andy Biggs is actually running, but if Charlie Kirk ended up winning, I think he could easily win the governorship because Katie Hobbs sucks. But if Karen Taylor Robinson won the nomination, I think Katie Hobbs wins. I think Katie Hobbs wins that. So it really depends on who runs. But if it is Andy Biggs that ends up winning, I do think he has a shot at winning the governorship. And if you look at hypothetical polling here, you see a lot of different people. With Charlie Kirk, it's really interesting because if you put everyone in, it's literally between him and Andy Biggs. And honestly, I think Charlie Kirk has the best shot at being a MAGA, like a pro-MAGA, but also not a bad person to actually run, and it won't ruin odds. I'm not sure if there's hypothetical polling. Yes, there is hypothetical polling for Charlie Kirk, but it is a little bit skewed because 18% are undecided. But Katie Hobbs does get a slight edge, but she more or less gets a slight edge almost over everyone, even over Andy Biggs, other than in like one poll that was R. So, I mean, honestly, I think it really depends on who you run. But honestly, I think the worst scenario here is running Karen Taylor Robinson. If Karen Taylor Robinson ended up winning the nomination, it would be horrible. And I think no matter what, these undecided voters would go with Katie Hobbs. But when it comes to Andy Biggs and Charlie Kirk, I think both of them are solid options to actually win the governorship if Charlie Kirk ends up running and if Andy Biggs actually won, But in my personal opinion, I think Arizona is a tilt R as of right now. I don't think Katie Hobbs is that liked. I think it's a real big toss-up. I think the biggest toss-ups here are, Michigan, are kind of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So with Wisconsin, I don't think the governor is liked. With Michigan, I think it really it's determined by the independent factor. If that independent does have a big effect, I think Michigan could go Republican, but you really don't know how much of an effect it can have. Arizona, I just think it's time for Arizona to shift Republican. But if Karen Taylor Robinson does end up winning the nomination, this would quite literally be a tilt Democrat right here. But I'm going to take my guesses and say it's going to be Andy Biggs or Charlie Kirk, so I'm going to say tilt R. So 20 Republicans, 16 Democrats for the governor races. I think it is a solid list here. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comments how you think I did in this video and everything like that. I'll do these videos every 2 months until 2026 happens, and then in 2026 I'll do them every month. So that's how it's gonna end up working. Just to let you guys know in advance again. And also I'll try to make a video 2 days from now, just like an actual normal video, because I haven't been making those in a while. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.